$1 bill, yo.
We are talking about some new 5.3 features today.
Action harvesting.
Action harvesting and the updated power trace. So that sounds cool. Let everyone filter in here. Yeah, it is cold. Harvesting and power loadout questions. There's thing called sweaters. Yeah, I put it at my desk because I was running around prepping all the stuff and got warm, and now I'm going to suffer the whole stream. Oh well. Okay, so 5.3 is on the horizon, and we had time to do a bunch of things that were outside of the race class split, and we needed to do them for the assassin that we've been building, and it hit the point where the power trays were just unmanageable because of the toggling mechanic. T was not right now, like druids press T to jump between bars, and that wasn't going to work when you had 3 and 4 bars.
Right.
Just flat out wasn't going to work, because then you would have to toggle through something to get to another stance that you may or may not be able to go to. So what we did was we went through and rewrote the whole power mapping tech, and it's pretty cool. So today I'm going to show you where that's going with this screenshot that Billy mocked up for us. So you can see what we have here is our updated, we're calling it the spell book now, it's the power book, it's where your powers go, and down below is your power tray. And you will notice that there's a new tray in there.
The harvesting tray. Yes. The survival tray? Yes.
The survival tray. So you will now be able to drag objects from your inventory to the survival tray. Right now we are limiting items to this one single tray. The survival tray is also the tray that you land in game on. So prior to this, you would come in and you would have to press Z to toggle into combat, right? And that is still a thing, because now when you press Z, you are toggling from the survival tray to the melee tray. Oh, Pan came in. Okay, so back to the power tray. So you will notice the survival tray down there, and it has a bunch of held items in there. This is technically what stance or tray you are in when you are not in combat, or in the melee tray, for example. So we were doing a poor job before visualizing it, I think, because people didn't understand ever when they were in combat, when they were out of combat. So what we've just done is codified that, and it's a stance now. So you come in, you're in the survival tray, you are not in combat. If you get hit, you get dizzied and knocked down. If you press Z, you go into the melee tray, and you go into combat mode at the same time. So we used to have a bunch of states. We had melee in combat, melee out of combat, ranged in combat, ranged out of combat. Stealth was an out of combat, and then there was just out of combat. Right. So we've kind of streamlined that, where you're either in the melee tray, the ranged tray, the stealth tray, or the survival tray. Okay. I'm seeing if there's any questions on that.
Remarks about seeing food and potions on the. I mean,
yep.
That's
so
worth.
You'll notice that the tools now are actually on the tray.
Right, because they're what? They're items.
They are items, as they've always been. However, prior to this, you would use F to interact, and it would just decide for you. Well, that's gone away. So now you have to decide what tool you're going to use and what you're going to beat on. I'll show that when we actually get into the harvesting demo. You'll notice the racial bloodline passive and your left click key are no longer mappable. That is because the bloodline passive is not, you can't swap it out. It just comes down over here, and you can't swap that guy out. And your left click is now determined by the object that you are holding. So if you are holding a harvesting tool, your left click power is the appropriate type of harvesting power. If you're holding a melee weapon, it is the appropriate left click. This is kind of a shift for us, because before we were saying load out your left click and then here's this weapon that you need to use. Now what we're going to say is equip this weapon and we will give you a specific left click, and it's based off of class, race, and tray. So we can swap. You could have the same object equipped, for example, the druid, and whether in the life or death tray, it actually switches which left click they have, and the player doesn't have to do anything. It does its thing. So that is cool, because it means that we can create a whole series of new objects that give you upgraded left-click attacks if we really want to do that.
Yes, indeed.
So we are no longer limited to just like a knight left-click if we want to make a cooler, for example, a cooler mace basic or something like that, because we can now link it to the actual object. So that is a pretty big shift for us. Yeah, somebody just said no more F. Yeah. Yes, the harvesting no longer relies on F to interact. However, our throne interacts are still F to interacts. Our looting is still F to interacts. None of that has changed.
So there is no more out of combat, people are asking?
Out of combat is now the survival tray. So when you are out of combat, the survival tray is up at all times. So if you have a question, why can't I harvest this tree, and you have a bunch of combat powers up, it's because you're not in the survival tray.
Does that mean you'll still get dizzy downed if you're harvesting and somebody attacks you?
Correct. Survival tray always has that limitation. That's also where you gain movement speed buffs, is while you're in the survival tray. So most of the time when you're in combat and you've got the, for example, Trailblazer and Trailmaster all shut off when you're in combat mode, because we can't have people moving around at 145% movement speed in combat. That would be ridiculous. So, but you can totally see the sweet UI that Billy has mocked up for us. This is going to get built in the 5.3 branch. You should have no question where things go, because they're columns, right? You'll notice, oh, hey. Now, if you treat the passive area and the powers area like a big book, you can drag it. It's not a one-to-one down relationship. It's anywhere within that grid underneath it. You can no longer move the left clicks. Generally, we're not giving people more than 2 right clicks, right? I can think that maybe the clerics and the blocker guys have 2 right now.
Yeah, that's it for now.
I don't even think there's a discipline that gives a right click, is there?
Block, right? I mean, you can get block if you're, you know, for a druid or whatever, but so there's that. But
yeah, generally we're not giving you more than would fit in there. Same with the ultimates and the retaliates. And if we do, Billy can come back and figure out how to squeeze them in there and make them fit, because he likes to do that.
So left click to harvest now?
Yep. Yeah, we'll get to that. So I just wanted everybody to see this, kind of digest this. It shows a pretty big change to the way we've been doing things for a long time. The whole dragging of items to the power bar was a pretty substantial change. Mm-hmm. We had never been able to do that before. We didn't have the tech to do that. Akshay got that all working. Even though it is kind of amusing now, when you use a potion, it will consume the entire stack.
Yeah.
So
we'll probably have that fixed before you
We'll have that fixed before you guys see it. But for us right now, if we use an apple, it eats all the apples.
All the apples.
You're like, I want an apple. No, you want all the apples. So that will get fixed by the time you guys see this. Let me go over into Unity. And I will demo the new action harvesting.
So items from survival tray that allows for consumables, i.e. health potions, correct? Yes.
Yes.
That is correct. Survival tray you can drag.
However, we've always been kind of fearful of the health potions, which is why our version of health potions are out of combat regen potions.
Right.
Which means you would need to be in the survival tray for them to actually be ticking. So it makes sense that they're over there.
Right.
So that's, yeah, we definitely know all the perils of potions.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, indeed. So that's why they're limited to that one tray.
But the door is open now with the potions on the bar, so you can expect.
Can they move around while harvesting, or are they stuck in place like they are now?
Well, they'll see.
Okay.
You will see.
As soon as we're done loading.
Okay.
We have loaded.
We have loaded. Let me go full screen on this guy. Once Unity is done, this is our test level that has basically every type of resource node. And Jonathan just got us the animal corpses back.
Oh, that's right.
So we've taken a substantial... You see them all lying down in the distance over there.
Can you do a quick recap for people that just came in?
Quick recap. Yes, so as you see, I've landed in, and I am now in the survival tray.
Survival.
Right? If I want to press Z, I can go into the melee tray. And the melee tray puts me into a combat stance, and I'm treated as in combat. I can't be dizzied. I can't be knocked down.
Well, you can be knocked down, but you won't be knocked down from being dizzy.
Correct. You won't be dizzied down. You won't be dizzied down. It's very cold, which is why there's snow in here. That's part of the recap as well. Now, if you want to go back to the survival tray, right now you can press H to just go back to it, or because we know so many people are used to it, you can just press Z and it treats it just like a toggle now. So for the vast majority of people, nothing changes, right? Z is basically you're in combat and you're out of combat. It's just we've codified it with a specific tray now. So it's very obvious which one that you are in. If you are a druid, for example, or a ranger, you can either press T to go to the range tray. You can press Z to go into the life tray or the melee tray for the druid and the ranger respectively. Or you can remap it to whatever you want. So remap it to whatever makes you comfortable. Okay. Okay. So they should be different colors, make it more obvious. We have these little, if you look down here, we have which one you are in. And for whatever reason, probably because I'm demoing it, it stopped working this morning. So when you press Z, it actually is supposed to go over the Z. There's little cooldown widgets that show you can't instantly spam between the trays. There is a little period of time while it sets up everything. And for, demo. Yeah. Demo, it happens.
Stuff happens.
Stuff happens. We're in development. This is a very early-ish, not super early, because we're already past.
Still fairly early. I mean,
we're past the kind of the gray box of it, but we're now into the tuning it, making it look and making it feel good. Which, by the way, you probably have to tune the damage numbers, but
at least you told me this time.
Yeah. Okay, so you come in, and prior to this, you had a spirit axe. Gone. So now you just come up.
Look at that birch.
Look at that birch. And you'll notice we still have just the little tooltip up. The tooltip up to tell you what version of harvest you have, what type of tree it is, what rank it is, and you just zap the sucker. And you'll notice that its health starts going down. It is our equivalent of punching trees, and it will start producing wood. It's very slow because we don't want people
doing this,
macroing this. Right. This is just a way to get you off your feet. We'll tune the values enough such that it doesn't do any. And yeah, you can either hold the left mouse button down, or you can left click, clickety, 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 clickety. All right, let me get the wood there because I'm going to want to build. Oh, look at that. Give me some wood. Hopefully it'll give me 3 because that is exactly what I need for. You'll also notice we have fly text. Before we weren't messaging how much damage you're doing. That's going to get cleaned up a little bit. Yay, I got 3 wood. Perfect. Okay, so I got 3 wood. I don't need to make anything. I'll come in here. And I will make, you'll now notice, we've broken apart the tools. So now all of the tools take the same 3 wood. This is for the basic tools only. The advanced tools didn't touch those recipes at all. So I'm going to make a basic harvesting axe. I definitely got an apple because I've got the skills.
So, can't saying we need the harvesting animations for sure. This is not good. Just so you're clear, what Blair was just doing there is what you do when you don't have a weapon. This is literally, if you played Minecraft, the first thing, like, you don't have anything, you start
punching trees.
You're punching trees. So this is our equivalent of punching trees. You'll punch trees until you get 3 wood, then you can make an axe, which Blair will now show you.
So I made the axe. You can either right-click it or you can drag it to your tray. If you if you right-click it, it will equip it into the tool slot, and it will automatically put it onto the survival tray. So right-click that guy.
Boom.
I summoned it. Boom. There's an axe there now. While you have the axe as your active tool, your tool is going to be out 100% of the time, right? So it's no longer. So yeah, I run around with my axe out now. You can tell that I'm in axe chopper mode. And before you saw how quick it or slow it was, right? Now you see choppity chop. Choppity chop. I'm just wrecking this tree. This is a lower end tree, which is why I'm doing 90 points of damage versus the 25 that I was doing. The animators gave us some alternate animations, so you'll notice sometimes I spin, sometimes I chop. You also notice as I'm going down the trees, my damage is decreasing. That is because the trees still have, they've always had this, but we just haven't shown it. The trees have the natural armor,
basically.
And the tool gives you penetration to that, which we call logging, mining, coring, and skinning. So those two things fight against each other. Because this is a basic weapon, it doesn't have much stat value.
Right, and this is a rank 3 birch.
And this is a rank 3 birch. So it's harder to use basic tools the further you go down. In fact, so if I go all the way down here, 7. Let's go to 9. So I was doing 70 on that rank 3.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing 10.
10.
So I definitely need to make a better tool. And hopefully the fly text now tells you, make a better tool. I really like the spin. I thought the animators did a nice flourish there on the spin. Mm-hmm. Because this isn't a channeled power, even more, it has an additional benefit of the timing doesn't get out of sync. So it generally looks good. The pace is much quicker to chop a tree down. In fact, you run through stamina very quickly. And Mark can talk about what else you're going to do.
What else are you going to do?
What else? The powers?
The powers.
That you were going to make for the tray?
Powers I'm going to make for a tray? I'm not sure what you mean.
Remember that spreadsheet I showed you yesterday?
Oh, yeah, sure. I honestly,
the cold is addling his brain.
Yeah. The individual powers. So I'm, why don't you cover that? Because I
We're just going to add some powers that you can load out in the survival tray that will make your next couple hits do triple damage.
Oh, right. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
All those good things. Reduce stamina cost. You can convert health into stamina.
Yes.
Or you can make your
Now I remember.
All of that.
That was 2 days ago.
Oh, was it 2 days ago?
I slept twice, actually 3 times.
Yeah, and he's been getting sick. So, in fact, everybody's starting to get sick around here. I guess it's the...
It could be the cold.
The cold. But yeah. So we're going to make it have some powers that you can load out. So the harvesters have some powers that they can load out and do fun things when they're harvesting as well. And they can get loaded out in this tray, and they won't be able to get loaded out into the melee tray or the range tray. Okay. Let's just knock this tree down.
Where are those extra harvesting powers coming from?
Right now, we're going to put them on some harvesting disciplines. So that is the idea.
Cool.
Everybody gets some disciplines.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's 90% of the year. I don't know what that is.
No, he's saying come to Denmark, we'll show you cold.
Oh,
okay.
I spent a lot of, from 3rd grade through a bachelor's degree in Upper Michigan, so
No.
I kind of know cold, at least from the continental U.S. perspective, anyway.
Let's see. Do I have enough wood now to make another tool? Let's make pick.
Go blue. All right.
Yeah, we're also going to put in some... Todd really wants some basic tools in there, the non-glowy versions. So the glowy versions will be the cooler ones. So there will be a default...
less spectrally fascinating.
So...
Boom.
Boom. Yeah, you saw how fast the summon is now. And let's see what happens when I chop me some gold.
Look at you. You're just ripping that gold up.
You know what's funny is I've noticed the first hit always does an additional 3 points of damage.
I'm going to go with rounding.
Are you?
Sure.
Because look at that.
Sure.
So if I wait a second, the first hit does 3 more points
I'm
of
going to
damage.
go with the first thing that comes to my mind. Probably,
No, that's not what it is.
are you sure you're not giving them a +3 bonus to the first strike?
We'll have to see what that is, because that is definitely...
that is unique.
Every hit after that does that, but the very first hit does an additional 3 points of damage. I wonder if it does that for the axes, too.
The axes weren't doing that I...
So again, you'll notice the animators gave us a couple animations. We are going to continue to add. There's one piece missing from this that we're going to be prototyping. I won't reveal that yet. Oh wow, that note came back quick. The trees aren't coming back very fast.
The birches take longer. No, I don't know that. Again, I'm making things up.
Boom. Yeah, we're still working on the... Okay, yeah, that bug isn't fixed. But the summoning of the tool when something's already in there.
So you're just hitting 1 and 2 to switch between those, correct?
Yeah, you can just swap from your tray. The tray will light up to tell you which is the active one. The tray is still a work in progress as well. But this is one of the things that we kind of added into
Is it cold in Texas? No, it's not cold in Texas.
It's just cold in this room.
Yeah, it's been in the 90s here in Texas.
It's cooling off.
But this room has to be in the low 60s, I'm thinking.
It always is.
Does it show crits? Yes, you'll see.
Yes, you will see
Who would
crits.
let you crit?
What's
Does
that?
I don't remember. Do they
Part of
crit?
the next thing is adding crits.
We should add crits if we don't have crits.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Will there be a crunch chop, crotch chop locking animation? No.
Yeah. Can we expect targetable weak spots?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah, it was definitely one of those things where, hey, our combat is super actiony, but our harvesting just really wasn't. And now it definitely is. So hopefully more people will enjoy the harvesting. I really like the animations. I'm having a good time. It just feels a lot better left clicking.
Great job on them.
Versus the F to interact. Yeah, that video we made a year ago where we said we didn't want to do a mini game and all that was. Yeah, well, you can.
Look at you moving around.
Yeah, look at you moving around. You're out of stamina. This will also be, by the way, the Tree of Life will stop taking damage from things other than axes.
So there.
Yes, so you are going to want to carry good axes to literally chop down the opponent's Tree of Life. So this is actually going to be an important part of combat in the sense of we are taking over this keep. We need to chop the tree down. It's going to be chopping, not hitting it with a blunt weapon, but...
Or shooting arrows at it,
or shooting arrows.
Letting it on fire kind of makes sense, but...
Fire makes sense to some
freezing,
degree.
maybe a little less. Or poisoning, maybe not.
Poisoning makes zero sense.
Well, I guess you could poison a tree.
Bleeding the tree.
Bleeding a tree
is ridiculous.
Unless you're making maple syrup. But I mean, that's
the
just
same thing with
delicious.
walls. The walls will take damage from hammers and the coring hammers.
Mm-hmm.
And because once again, bleeding walls and poisoning walls is just ridiculous. So these.
So Gratishers asked, do attributes affect harvesting damage?
Do attributes affect harvesting damage? I know that there's a stat mod in there right now for... I can't remember what you called it. But you definitely...
I don't remember either.
That has definitely been more than 2 sleeps for Mark,
Yeah.
so Mark has forgotten what that one was as well.
Unfortunately, I don't have our entire skill system memorized. all 7,000 stats.
Why not?
As part of the racial stuff that Mark is doing, the skill tree stuff that you were doing, the racial and the other attributes, there is a definite linkage to attributes to harvesting skills. So we definitely wanted to make it, or harvesting stats, we definitely want to make it such that increasing attributes is beneficial for harvesters as well.
Yep.
Again, so what's kind of funny is we're doing the same thing with harvesting that we did with combat. Right, we put in the basic thing, we kind of futzed around with different models, what we wanted to do, came back around to it multiple times, and this is actually the first time that we're coming back around to the actual mechanics of harvesting, not the results.
Right.
Because we did that update about a year ago, where we changed it from, it's already been a year, where we changed it from the 5-tier system into the it's a flatter system, because you use all of the resources and all the recipes. Right. So now we're actually coming around to the mechanics to make it feel good, such that people are generally having a good time while they're running around the world, harvesting and getting stuff, and it's not just a simple left to interact. So that's part of the whole goal here.
So to clarify, hammers can be used to damage walls, but do you have to use hammers to damage walls?
No, the catapults still do their thing, but it's silly when people go up with a sword and they're trying to damage the wall with a sword, right? We're definitely going to make it make sense.
Yeah.
We'll probably make the fort walls weak to chopping as well. So yes, I think everybody's probably going to want to train a little bit of the exploration tree as far as even if you're a combatant, not only because there's fun tools in there like apples, and everybody loves apples.
Everybody likes that.
Everybody loves apples. In fact, I got a golden apple earlier when I was harvesting. I got really excited because it had the legendary splash on it. But you're going to want to have some chopping, and you're going to want to have some coring, because those things will be useful for sieges and other things, just like they should be, in my opinion. Yeah, the swords, using my really good sword on a wall.
Yeah,
that would be foolish.
Tragic.
Yes. Okay, what are the questions we have?
So you'll have to be in the survival tray while attacking the Tree of Life. Does that also include the Bane Tree?
Yes, it does.
Considering the Bane Tree does damage right now.
Oh, yes. We're going to have to do something to make sure they don't chain get dizzied down. Yes, the idea there is that you are vulnerable while you are doing that, or you're bringing lots of confessors or people doing magical damage. But the idea is that the axes and the hammers do a crap ton of damage. We'll see if that survives, but that's the kind of general idea it is right now.
I'm thinking right now.
So somebody had asked this a little bit earlier. Since you can only equip one of the harvesting items at a time, does that mean that all those harvesting items will be lootable?
Does that mean that all the harvesting items will be lootable?
So
yes, they are in your inventory.
Okay.
So we are talking. So we've just started to work on our bag design as part of this as well. One of the benefits of some of the bags that we are looking at making is that those bags are safe. So there will be specialty bags that only harvesting tools can go into, or resources that go into, that are not part of your main inventory. They're a benefit for having that bag type on that vessel. So yes, all part of the works. As the game systems come online, it becomes even more exciting because we get to make rules.
Yeah.
What effects does this change on group harvesting? Sorry, just go ahead with that.
Okay, so group harvesting. I can demo that because we have group nodes over here. Let me summon my... I really like running around with the spirit tool. I was a little worried about this when Todd and I were talking about it. I'm like, do we really want people running around with the spirit tools?
Oh, come on. You can tell. Tell you're a miner, or tell you're a
yeah, you
lumberjack,
can tell, and
you're okay.
And you know what? The effects, I like the glow that it's giving me. Again, my resolution isn't very good on this monitor, so blame Jack and Gibson. But the effects that Greg did for the little mystical runes on the hand are great. So here are some group nodes, as many of you have seen.
Rank 10 silver. Holy cats.
I'm going to go down to a little less than rank 10. Now, group nodes still do the same thing. Mechanically on the back end, they have a very high armor such that a solo player cannot penetrate it enough to actually deal any damage. So we should probably have a fail or at least a hit effect on there so you know that you are...
Right, some better messaging.
Right.
It says, hey, you probably need another person helping you here.
But if there was two people here, our combined power would be enough to knock it down such that we could start damaging it. Very slightly, because I'm using a basic tool. Going against group nodes with basic tools is never something you should do. I mean, it has 0 skill on it.
Yeah.
I mean, 0. So, definitely... Oh, hey, look, it's taking damage now, too.
Oh, yeah.
Steve fixed that. Good job, Steve. So, yeah, up until yesterday, the tools weren't taking any damage because they didn't know about the new tools. So, that has been fixed. But group harvesting still works just as it did before. It's just a bit clearer the damage amounts that you are doing. Okay. Yeah, not all tools will glow. The lower end version, there will be versions. I'm guessing the basic tools will just be basic, a basic axe and a basic pick. Basically, we didn't have the ability to do the tech before of keeping the tools out because they were baked into the old archetypes. And now that we have this whole concept of weapons, we can use that same tech to leverage to keeping the tool out all the time. The animators did have to go through and make some tweaks to running around to make everybody look good while they're carrying things, and they've already done that, so good job. Next question, or if there's any questions.
Do you have any other plans for the survival tray besides harvesting tools and consumables?
What kind of plans?
Will this be how we deal with and control pets, mounts, caravans, taming creatures, etc.?
Maybe. I mean, I guess we need to talk about if it's an active combat power when you kind of put a thrall into a soul gem or capture an animal. If that's a combat task or if it's a survival task. If it's a survival task, the thing about the survival tray is it always puts you at risk because you're at risk of getting dizzied, right? However, the benefits for being in the survival tray is you have access to your full consumable library, and you have all of your speed enhancers. So most of our speed enhancers are considered for out of combat only. So the centaur moves very quickly when he's in the survival tray. The elkin moves very quickly when he's in the survival tray. Bard Song, very quick when you're in the survival tray. When you're in a melee tray or range tray, not so much. Yes.
Is the single hit damage still capped at 100 damage?
Is the single hit damage for
a node?
It's not capped. It's just that the tools do 100, and we haven't started modulating the crit stuff yet.
Yeah.
The crit stuff will add double damage, or if we decide to go with a sliding scale like we did with the regular crits. The duelist burrowing power currently requires for you to be out of combat. Will that carry forward to the duelist must be in survival tray to burrow? Yes. So you have to be in the survival tray to enter the burrow stance, or use their ultimate vanish, and that will automatically put them into the burrow state. Also, the racial burrow and the wood elf racial camouflage both require you to be in the survival tray to activate them. They cannot be activated from the melee or range tray. Yeah, it's much easier now for us to kind of just identify the rules by tray type. Yeah. Because it should be very clear what tray you are in, and the rules, the button will either be lit up or not, which should give you an indication of what you need to do. Also, I think we should probably put it in the tooltip too. Yeah. It should tell you what tray you're required to be in.
So Soul River's asking, will sprint be available out of combat again now?
No. Sprint is an in-combat power, essentially. Out of combat, your speed buffs are the ones I listed off before. Right. Everybody just moves faster baseline out in survival tray, and you now have a wide variety of racial ones. And if you are, say, a human, you don't get one. Unless... You know what? Did we add Trailblazer as? I think Arcane Archer comes with it.
One of the bow ones. I do not remember which one.
Yeah, so there's a couple ways to get one of those survival run speed increasers.
Right, and I mean it should be noted too that effectively out of combat you are sprinting like right now.
Right.
So,
the movement speed.
Sprint wasn't taken away; it was basically always given to you and then added as a secondary thing to do.
It is our way of keeping some of the insane movement stuff in combat from carrying over. Because we can make the out of combat stuff, you know what I mean? The survival tray. Right. Yeah, we need to start kind of remembering it's the survival tray now. Yeah. It's kind of just like unwiring our brains from calling them archetypes anymore.
Several years.
Because we've been doing that for 2 years. Yeah.
Will each tray have its own passive loadouts?
That is a thing that we would like to do. If you look at the mock-up there, the intention is, yes, that we can do that. We just need to make sure that we don't kill the server when we do that, because we're actually swapping them out. And there's some things that we need to do, such as cooldowns, because a lot of those things have longer cooldowns. We don't want swapping a tray to make those cooldowns go away. Right. But we are on the road for that tech to work.
So can you explain swapping harvesting tools? Like if you have a pick, I think right now, if you wanted to go and harvest a tree, do you need to hit 2 to bring up your axe and then go harvest it?
Yes,
or,
yes. So the tools don't auto swap. So if you go up and I've got a pick, now what we can do is we can make it so that you do 1 point of damage. If that's a thing, just hey buddy, change to your axe.
Yeah.
Right. So I changed to the axe, and you can see that I can do damage again.
So since sprint is only related to in combat, will they be able to attack while sprinting at some point?
Will you be able to attack while sprinting?
I mean, holding down shift while clicking the button? Is that?
That's the question.
That's the question.
And the answer is no, because holding left down is a power. Sprint is actually a power. Sprinting are powers, jumping is a power. That's why you can't do things while you're actually doing those things. What we are going to do is we are going to, I've been talking with the UI guys and Akshay that we need to, basically when a power is in its global blackout, which people may not even know what the hell that is, if it's in blackout, which means we're not accepting input for another power, we need to put everything on a cooldown so we can tell you, hey, the reason that you can't do anything is because you're actually on blackout. We're not telling you you're on blackout right now. So it's a visual thing. It will help people understand why, hey, this power is doing a longer 1.5 second animation, which is why I can't do this other thing. It's just a polish thing. We'll get to it. Gonna have to macro left click. No, again. Was that the one that you read too?
No, but I mean, clearly it bears saying again.
You can hold
down the button.
You can hold the button down.
Hold the button down. There was a question about fly text and how it looks cumbersome and in the way and whatever.
Fly text will be getting a pass.
We have all.
We have guarantees from Billy that the fly text will be getting a pass. Again, that is a more polishy thing, but we are getting to that stage. So, clearly I will have things drug into this tray. But, if I want to go into... If I want to
Look
go...
at Mammoth. Look at Mammoth.
Yeah, if I want to go into the... Yeah, he gets a nice... I really like the...
Yeah, it's beautiful.
The beautiful block, yes. So again, this is a... You toggle between them. It's very obvious what tray that I'm in, right? Super obvious. I am clearly in the survival tray. I am clearly in the melee tray.
Okay.
It's called the melee tray. I should probably change it to the
range tray.
The range tray. Yes, these are our target dummies that we test all kinds of things out. I'm not going to show all of the powers, but
they have lots of armor.
They have those are our heavily armored guys versus those guys which are less armored. So, yeah. Any other questions?
Hammer throw looks cool. Thank you.
Yeah,
that's did a great job on it.
Yeah, I think they did a great job on the hammer throw. We're all happy with where the cleric ended up, and should be in your hands is also part of 5.3 is good.
There's so much stuff in there.
So many things. So many things. The variation in path is a bad idea. It doesn't matter because it's not a projectile.
Yeah,
it's just a
all
visual.
Bells and whistles.
It's just a visual. They either hit you with the reticle or they didn't. Yeah, it's not. Again, it's not a projectile. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Basically, if you left click and the reticle is red at the moment that it goes, it's
should be good.
It's good. The cool thing about some of the tech that we got for that is because we have characters like the Elkin who can get range increasers, they can throw their hammers from further. We want the hammer to still travel at the same speed, even though the distance is greater or shorter. Obviously, if someone's point blank, we want it to travel at the same distance. So Tommy gave us some tech so that we can basically make it travel and look good no matter what the distance is. Yeah, it's those little things, right? Building an MMO isn't about like 5 big things. It's about 1,001 little features. It's actually more than 1,000. It's probably more like 10,000,
whatever. I don't know.
Maybe even more.
Automate them one day.
Yep. Assassin in 5.3.2. No, the Assassin is not part of 5.3. We're waiting on the effects, and there is the positional stuff that still needs to get built. But the powers are done. The animations are done. We're just waiting a couple pieces of tech. So it won't be in the same polished state that the Cleric is in by the time 5.3 rolls around. Unless it takes us forever to polish this thing up and get it in your hands, which we're hoping is not a thing. Master of Hammers. Master of Hammers is the discipline. I think you've already built that, or their weapon specialization.
It is in and there, so yep.
Great.
Can you hit people with your harvesting tools?
Can you hit people with your harvesting tools? They do not do damage that players can take. The damage that harvesting tools do is only damage that trees and rocks and other resource nodes do. Is the Elkin going to be in 5.3? Yes, the Elkin is going to be in 5.3. I saw the Elkin running around in game yesterday.
Murdeer
will be there.
No Shovel Knight. Well, I mean, you can be a Shovel Knight. You just can't be a Shovel Knight that
actually hurts anybody.
Yeah.
Do we actually need positional tech to go online to actually start playing the class? Yes, you do. We have never made a habit of releasing a class that has been in a state where we don't think it's a playable thing.
Yeah.
And without the positional tech, that is basically...
Right, it's a very large part.
It is a huge portion of their damage. Their damage has been balanced around the fact that we expect them to be getting bigger hits from behind. And to not have that would just make the class seem overly weak right off the bat. Well, right now we're trying to stay with the 4 trays maximum, which would mean that the Assassin is the one who could potentially get all 4 with a stealth tray, a range tray, a melee tray, and a survival tray. So they are our worst case tray option because they have all of them, but they are one of the more advanced classes. For most people, they are just going to be going between 2 trays.
Right. Melee and survival.
Which is what you've been doing since starting this game, which is pressing Z to go in combat, pressing Z to go out of combat, or if you really want to press Z and H, you can press H to go back to the survival tray. Whatever floats your boat.
Or whatever key you map it to.
Right. Same thing with the range tray. Right now defaults to T. If you were to press T, it would put you in it. If you were to press T again, it would take you out of it. Or if you were to press Z from T, it would put you in the melee tray. Basically, you can jump between any of the trays, or you can hit that tray again to toggle back to the survival tray, or you can jump straight to the survival tray by pressing H.
Right. All kinds of options.
Many options, but now it should, I'm hoping, be much clearer where you are and what mode you're in, and what you can do while you're in that mode. And powers are definitely locked to trays. We have a way to flag the power such that a melee power can't go into the survival tray, yada yada.
Will there ever be an option to mouse wheel for tray changing? To just scroll through the tray?
I don't know. I don't know the answer if you can use a mouse wheel to because you'd have to remap it. So also there is a danger there of you overshooting a tray, and that is something that we don't want to have happen. Yep, the nuke. We are definitely nuking all of the items as the skills when 5.3 comes out.
All right, you guys, your hour is up.
One last question. Let's find a really good question. I don't understand what the difference between a range tray and a melee tray is from besides the actual abilities. That is the difference between them.
Yeah, that's basically it.
Basically it. So the ranger has all of her ranged stuff and her ranged left click it's mainly about what equipment you can use now, right? Because when you're in the range tray, you're using a bow, and we automatically equip the bow for you when you go into that tray, which now means we automatically update your left click power, which for the bow is the charge to shoot. Whereas if you were to go in the melee tray, we put you to your daggers or your swords, or now you can equip axes and maces if you're a ranger. We put that as your main weapon, which is now going to drive what your left click is. There's also some fancy things, I think, with the ranger specifically, because they only regenerate their energy while they're in their range tray.
Yeah.
However, ranger does start out in the melee tray now. So their default tray, it will be the, I think that's correct. No, their default animation stances. So you guys don't need to worry about that. Whatever you toggle to will be whatever you go into. That was just, it was an animation thing that we had to make work, because they were getting, it was funny, they were getting stuck like this in the bow stance, but they had melee weapons equipped.
Right.
So we had to do some stance stuff to on the back end to make that work right. Okay. Well, thanks everybody for coming up and checking out the new harvesting, the new trays. I showed you a Claire camera throw, which we should probably...
And a shiny block.
And a shiny block. Am I... I'm shiny. Shiny and chrome when I block.
No, I went right to Moana with that.
Oh, you did?
Shiny.
Oh, I went with the shiny and chrome. So these are all things that are bundled into 5.3, and you will enjoy them immensely. We've enjoyed making them. Harvesting is night and day, feels so much different. There's even more little polish that we'll add to it over the next couple of weeks as we get this thing ready, and it's just a ground floor for us to start doing cooler things with powers and disciplines for those guys. So harvesting is not a drag and a chore. Yeah, you'll want to go do it, and it'll be something to do, and hopefully more people will get into it this way. So we're really excited about it. I can't wait to get it in your hands, and what's holding us back is Jack. Really.
It's all my
If
fault.
only Jack would let us
only
release
Jack.
5.3.
You know what? We haven't thrown any shade on Max either.
That's true.
It's probably Max's fault in
He's
some
not
ways.
here to defend himself either. So.
He's totally not
That
here.
means it's definitely Max's fault.
All right, we're getting the wrap up symbol. We will see you guys on our next one, which is probably the monthly Q&A that we will do here in 2 weeks. So submit your questions on the Dev Backers or Dev Partners forum if you have them, and we will see you later.
Welcome, Crowfallers. All right, today we're just going to have a very short segment with me on kind of an updated environment and the direction this is all going. So this is going to be all new stuff. A lot of this is going to be kind of some stuff you've seen in the from the video, but it's all new in terms of actually being created in the parcel. So, and this is the new beachhead actually, right here. And those familiar that have played the test, we had this huge beachhead where you would spawn into a temple like this, and then you would just have this kind of giant scene to just go run around in. And we had areas where you could get pack pigs and get leather and then a bunch of resources just stringing around, and then you would just go outside the gates and into the actual campaign. So the difference is right off the bat is the scale. We've changed the scale of this from this size, which was this size, down to this size. So it's much smaller, a lot more compact, and a lot easier to kind of navigate now. It's nowhere near as vast. It's still pretty big, but it's nowhere near as big as it was before, and that was kind of some good feedback we got. But let's get right to it. So some of the really cool, interesting things that you're going to start seeing here pretty soon when we release this new, I guess you could say this is part of that whole graphical upgrade. I've had some people message me and comment to me, well, where is it? You know, so we released this video a couple months ago showing the new direction and kind of the graphical upgrade that we just kind of had in that video. Well, we haven't added any of it into any of the tests. No one's seen any of that stuff, which is really cool because it's on the way. And this is that stuff. You're seeing a lot of new ground vegetation, all new types of trees, all new types of rock formations that we're going to be putting into the scene, just to kind of add that variety when you're walking around. And on top of that, we've got some really cool shaders to work with. So we've got a new environment shader and a new a terrain shader, which allows me to do a bunch of really nifty stuff. And one of those things I can show you right off the bat, like for example, let's just kind of fly over here real quickly. One of the cool things that we're going to be able to do is something called triplanar mapping. And for those that don't understand that that term, that allows me to texture map something on a terrain that looks like you would normally do in a prop. So if you take a prop like this over here, this tower, and how that rock looks, we've texture mapped that. We've UV mapped that to be in a certain scale of, say, like a 1-to-1. So when you see it in the game, that's what it looks like. Well, unfortunately, with terrain systems, you don't always get the same. I can't go in here and just UV map everything to look a certain way. So what you end up having is, I can show you what it looks like without this terrain shader. This is what it would look like without it. That's Unity standard right there. That's the default. And it looks really poopy. I don't like it. It's real stretchy. It stretches all the textures, because what's happening is, as you morph that terrain, as you sculpt the terrain, it stretches those UVs, because the UVs are only ever a certain way on the terrain. You can scale the textures in a terrain, but you can't change it in a specific area to look different. And you can kind of see out here off in the distance too, it's very repeated. So watch what happens when I turn the shader back to, it breaks all that up, and it now has triplanar mapping. It looks really good. We like it this way. And another really cool thing is we have what is called far tiling. So as you're looking off in the distance, before you would see it whatever I had it tiled to. So if I had it tiled to, let's say, just throwing a number out, 16, it was tiled 16 times. Up close, it may look really good, but from far away, it's going to look really repeated. And so what this allows me to do is I can set a close tiling and a far tiling to be separate, and then blend those as you get closer. So if you look at this area right here, you'll see that it's got some cool information, but as I start to slowly get closer to it, it blends into, you can see it right there. It blends into the texture size that I really want you to see it at, up close. So that's another nifty thing that we get to do that will really help these environments kind of look the way that we want them to look. So, and of course we've got, let's fly over here, sorry. I know I'm whipping around real quick. So these are a collection of rocks. These are some of the new rock models that we've made for the environment. With the new terrain shader, environment shader, I should say, which is a little bit separate. It's an object shader. You have what is called the terrain, and then you have objects. Both of them have separate shaders. With the object shader, I now have the ability to do some really neat stuff there as well. We can add moss. So I can take moss on an object. Let's just plop this guy down here into the ground. Kind of just roll him around like that. And then we can have it so it looks like it blends into the environment. And what's really neat is this is all based off a raycast shooting down. So as I rotate this thing, see if I can turn that. As I rotate it, it picks up the moss based off the rotation, which is really awesome. So I don't have to worry about any of that. I can just rotate it until my heart's content and just put it, let's say I wanted the rock to look this way into the ground instead, but still wanted to get that moss on there. Boom. So that's another really nifty thing we can do. And that also implies with snow. We're able to do this with snow as well. That's also in the shader. So I can turn that on. Ooh, get some snow going. And so when the hunger finally comes into the winter season, we'll be able to do all this fun stuff where everything will be full of snow. And that also goes with the terrain itself. The terrain has a snow setting. So we can get snow very quickly. And we'll have a system that drives everything. So instead of me going in here and individually just showing you, we'll have a system that it just dynamically goes all over everything. We'll have already plugged in all the information that we need and to get it to run. So yeah, so let's just run real quick through this, or fly through. We'll just do a quick fly through. And we'll show you what this kind of looks like. I'll go real close up into some details. And I'm going to go full screen on you.
Do you want to take some questions?
Yeah, let's start
too?
pumping some questions out. We only got 30 minutes, and now it's going to go by quick.
Yeah, I'm not gonna pull out too terribly many. How do you think that the new shader is gonna affect performance, if at all?
Well, that's one thing that we're when it comes to performance, which is a really good question, but when it comes to performance, the way this really works, and this is with any game, a lot of times you have your engine, you'll have your base thing that you're going on, and you're making assets, and you're making art, and you got coders, they're doing all the lines of code and doing all that stuff that you need, creating systems and whatnot. But you usually get to a certain point in the production where you then switch over to optimization. Well, we have to do this a little differently since we're a smaller studio and we're pumping this stuff out to you guys all the time. We kind of have to like do a little and then optimize, do a little and then optimize, which is, it's a little bit slower process. So to kind of answer your question, this will take a hit at first until we get to the until the optimization catches up. There's actually some advantages on some of this stuff that will help performance. For example, in the environment shader with these props, we have an ability to call what is instancing. And so the shader itself has a little check mark on it that if the model shares the exact same model and the exact same textures, you can then instance that. So what ends up happening is I could dupe this model right here, this rock, 100 times, and I'm only paying for the price of one. It basically, you're saving a lot on the draw calls, which is effectively can hit the frame rate. So yeah, we are definitely hitting that all the time, trying to optimize. But right now it's running good. I'm just doing a little fly through, and I'm probably about 60 frames right now. But this is on my beefy computer. So and this is what you're gonna see now with all this new stuff is the verticality and the I guess you could say the silhouetting is gonna change in the environment, which is gonna make things a lot more interesting, as well as adding a bunch of ground vegetation. That was one thing we were missing in all the other stuff is we just had a couple of trees and then we had the terrain. We didn't have any of that stuff in between. And that's what all this stuff's adding. It's going to add that kind of variety, which is really going to kind of make the world a lot more interesting. You'll just come across different type of formations, and you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. I'm going to go over here, and there might be some sort of chest or some sort of resources that you want to get. And we'll have these throughout all various types of parcels. So it's going to be a lot of fun to start creating this stuff. I've been always wanting to get to this point where I have the assets now to just start pumping this stuff out and making it look really good. And we're getting real close there. I think we're pretty much there. So we'll be able to do fun stuff like, for example, this thing over here in the swamplands. Sorry, I'm flying fast. Whee! So this is like a little swampland area in the beginning stage where you'll be able to come and beat up on some pack pigs and get their leathers and stuff. But I want to start adding in a lot of this kind of stuff in the environment so that when you're running around, for example, let's just go out here. Let's say this was another parcel and you were rolling up on this. You would know this because it has a kind of defining feature. And you could start, laying down markers around the world saying, hey, meet me by this storm formation or whatever. And yeah, more questions.
I don't know if you know this one. Is the weather going to be server-based or client-based?
The weather would most likely is going to be driven, well, client-based in terms of rendering, but there will be some aspects that you just won't be able to turn off. Like you're not going to be able to turn off night and day or turn off rain. So if it's raining on your screen and if it was purely client-based, you could find a way to get in there and turn that off and have an advantage over a player. Because what we plan on doing is once the weather hits, we'll probably have, we'll soak up in the fog and we're going to make it real kind of like claustrophobic, especially for nighttime. We want to make it feel like it's a real adventure game. And if you could just turn all that off and not have to worry about that and someone else does, well, that's kind of a huge disadvantage for that other person. So There'll be some things client side that you'll only ever have to worry about rendering size, but for that kind of stuff, no, that's most likely going to be server driven.
Do you know how soon we're going to start seeing some of these changes, like the snow sliders and?
Yeah, so good question. So we're trying to shoot for 5.3, I think, is what the updating what we wanted to do. So what I have to first do is go through all the old parcels, and I'll show you some of those old ones and convert them over to this new stuff. And that takes a little bit of time. And then we're going to start pumping out what we call adventuring parcels. But we're hoping for a 5.3 kind of look, which is a month or so from now, I think is what we're on track for. That would be nice. I'd love to get this all into you guys now if I could, but you know, there's a step that we have to do to make sure you guys, you know, it's like it runs. But yeah, so very, very soon.
I see some fancy trees in there that look like, you know, like birch trees and stuff like that. Are all the knotwood trees going to look similar, and all the different types of?
So yeah, another good question actually, and I can show you real quick. So to get around the system that we kind of created, which was we wanted birch, I think it was yew, I think it's oak. So we wanted these to be specifically that you kind of mine for to get harvest, to get a certain type of resource. But then there's knotwood, which is just kind of our shitwood, the shitwood that just is used for a lot of things, but it's not very special. The problem with that is it was only like one type of tree, and I mean that's not very interesting, and I couldn't just flood the environment with a bunch of oaks, a bunch of this, because then that screws up the whole harvesting thing. So I talked to Todd about this, and what we end up doing is, and I'll just come over here and just kind of show you guys, I end up just spending the time and making a bunch of new trees that are considered knotwood family. So these are all the same, they're gonna all give you the same type of resource. And then I'll show you the new updated oak, yew, that type of tree. And so they do look different, but let's just do this. All right. So we'll just come in here and we'll just show you a few of the, I won't show you all of them, but I can just kind of quickly, oh, that's the stump, we don't need to see that.
I think I just heard Raymond scream in the other room.
Yeah, he got all excited. So this is our new version of our old knot tree, which it is actually updated. It's quite, you know, I went in, retextured it, made it look much nicer, and you know, we actually have a texture on the trunk. It's not just this jarbled mess. So this is the new basic knotwood tree. But then the other new, I guess, part of the family now is some of these other ones, and we'll just quickly show you some. And these can be, what's great about these guys is they scale very good. So I can make like a huge forest, or we can have a smaller, younger version of these. Again, in the same family. Some of them are using the same textures, just kind of slightly changed. There was that one. Well, there's a bunch of them. I'm just going to show you kind of some of my favorites. And this one I just went in there and, you know, completely changed so that it's a totally looking different type of wood, but it still fits within the knotwood family.
They said you can't call it knotwood anymore. It has to be shitwood now.
Shitwood? Yeah. Todd's he's gonna love me for that one. Sorry, Todd. So, well, you get the picture. So these are, you know, and there's probably a half dozen more, and because then we have a lot ground trees that are much smaller that are only used for, well, here, I'll just show you real quick so we're all on the same page. So there's a much smaller tree, and this is only ever used for kind of this height and scale. And now we have the new ones, the new versions of the old ones, this is the new version of the yew tree, which is this kind of cool, wicked looking, old, yewy looking tree. Because I went back and started doing the real research that I needed to, and they're very stringy, and they have theyese long arms, and they're really, really cool looking, the old ones. And let's see, I think there's a new oak as well. Find that. So you will still roll up on these guys, but these are resource trees, and you'll just kind of have to start. You know, you'll get to know the difference between that, this, and then these guys. I mean, it's just a matter of repetition. You'll just repeatedly do it so much that you'll see the silhouette and go, oh, that's it. Oh, that's this, that's that. So yeah, that kind of answers that question. I'll show one more here. Let's do the ash tree. I always like this one. It's kind of a tall, fun tree. I sound like Bob Ross, don't I? Happy little tree.
Happy little tree.
It's a fun Crowfall Ross. All right, so yeah. So now I'll show you just a quick environment of one of the ideas for what we mean by adventuring parcels. So this is a beachhead, and this is a player starting zone. And so it's pretty big for, I would say, just a one parcel area. This almost looks like a collection of cells to make up a parcel, but it's not. It's just one zone. And then we have other zones that you've seen, like towns and villages, those parcels. Those are for player building. Well, this is going to be something a little different. This is going to be what we are calling adventure parcels. And so they're going to be a little bit smaller, but you'll be able to build them in a way so that you get this like adventuring zone. So you could have like a village that you need to go to create or to finish a task or something. And like this one is it's just a 1x. It's just a actually it's into our new scale. So it's just a 4-cell parcel. It's 4 of these guys. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I might have shown something like this off before, but this is the completed state with the rocks and shaders and stuff working. And again, it's designed to be just interesting. It's just supposed to be an interesting area for you to go and explore. And we'll put stuff out there to cause a reason to go out there and fight. There might be a chest in the center or some resources stacked around so that when you roll up on it, there might be someone already here trying to get it. And you're just like, you know what? No, not today. Not today, not on my watch. And so I'll just kind of play through it real quick and show you guys. Any other questions that people are popping out?
Not yet. There's a couple design questions, but
I know.
That's pretty fun.
That's
I
to
like
be.
that rock overhang. That's really cool looking.
Yeah, we'll be able to have a lot of new fun areas that are very much in this vein. What's up?
Hold on, let me see if I can find
It
it.
was way at the top. Someone had asked about parcel seams.
Partial seams?
Parcel seams, yeah.
Oh, what was the question?
Transmission between parcels,
What do they look like? Like, are they?
and basically, is the stitching between the parcels any different with this new shader?
With the new shader, from what we've seen the first tests, it's almost the exact same. You really can't tell. There's a few areas where what happens is when you get a terrain that's like this level and you get a terrain that goes up to this height, it wants to stitch this and meet you in the middle, and you end up having that stretching problem. We've kind of have some ideas on how to fix that, and a lot of it has to do just to make sure the terrains are within a threshold of say like 5 meters, so that it's just a little bit more gradual. But as far as we can tell, you wouldn't be able to, like if this was stitched to another terrain right now, you wouldn't be able to tell. So in a nutshell, this is kind of basically what we got going. This is new shaders, new textures, new objects, new terrain assets, and new lighting. The lighting is now in, and then the weather. I mean, I can quickly show you a little bit of that. Which,
yeah, can you show some of the weather? Are we going to see any of these new props in the EKs as well? Are they going to be assets, or are they just going to be existing on the parcels?
Good question. So the question is, I don't know if anyone can hear. They probably can hear him, right?
It probably sounds pretty low, so
Yeah.
I don't mind.
So one of the good
repeating it.
questions that was just asked was, is stuff like this going to show up in the EK parcels? And the answer to that is a yes and no. What we may end up doing, because some of this stuff is a little bit more intensive, so having this on a player parcel where they can put down 30, 40 houses may not be the best, but you'll have some of this stuff. You'll probably have a lot of this kind of stuff with just little tiny bits and pieces of something like this. But we also might just make a parcel and design it so that you can only have so many houses on it, and it does have some cool terrain features that kind of emulate this. So the question is yes and no. We'll have to go about this in a way so that it doesn't completely wipe out your frame rate. when you add a bunch of houses, like for your guild. But we don't want it to be 100% flat. It's such a tough thing to do, because the buildable parcels need to be just that. They need to give you the space to have it so that it's buildable. But at the same time, when it's just 100% flat, it's not very interesting. It might be a combination where we put some of this stuff in to kind of break that up, and then you can just frame your EKs, those town parcels and village parcels, with interesting parcels like this, so that you got stuff around you. But all right, so yeah, let's quickly look at some of the. Sorry, let me get this. Just kind of look out here.
Are we going to see ambient sound with like the weather and
Yes.
things like that?
And another cool thing that we're going to start implementing pretty soon, like birds, butterflies, that kind of stuff, just little, to make the environment actually alive. You're going to see actual life. And that's going to add a whole bunch of neat stuff. So here's some cloudiness. Whee! And so right now I'm simulating the day. So it's going to be pretty quick. I think I got it set to 15 minutes. Let's change this to like 3 minutes. So that sun's going to go pretty fast.
They like the idea of ambient creatures.
Yeah, it really will bring, and we've somewhat tested that. It's going to really bring the life to the environment. Sorry, I can never do two things at once. So here's some other clouds. We can do like light rain. So we have some rain coming in. And I can even make the shader change the way the environment looks so things look wet, which is really cool. Let's go back to that. And then there's also like heavy rain.
Nice.
You can do some snow, have some snow come in, and then, but right now I don't have the system set up so that it would actually start to accumulate. So we have to tie all that in together, but we'll be able to do that.
Is it gonna rain inside buildings?
And we can even do, no, that's a good question. People,
Someone asked it.
I know.
no, it won't rain inside buildings. It should be able to it should be able to tell the geometry and not have it rain, hopefully.
Hopefully.
One of the cool things is with this lighting system is we can have a trigger box. So we can set up to a parcel to be so when let's say you walk into this and this is a swamp area, we can have it trigger box so that when you walk in, the lighting changes, the mood changes, it gets super foggy, and then the whole environment just looks totally different. And then when you leave that environment, it kind of goes away. I love that. I love when games do that kind of stuff. So it's almost atmospheric to the location, which is really nice. So.
Do you have is night ready to show off?
Nighttime, we're still working on nighttime. I mean, I can show you real quickly. It's just we're running into some issues with nighttime. And I don't mind showing stuff that's not very much what we would like to show off. I mean, that's why we're just transparent that way. But right now we have it so that the trick is this: how dark do we make it? And so that's right now where we're at.
Moon phase.
Yeah, the moon phase. Fucking Gibson. So right now this is pretty bright with the shader. So you can see there's this outline. So we're working that out, how much we would actually show off the environment. But we do have it in. It's there. And we can have the stars move and all that.
Oh, I like the stars.
Yeah. So it's just a matter of how dark do we go? Because traditionally in MMO games, it's really not dark at all. If you actually go back and look at all the MMO games that are out there that have ever been, they don't go really dark. Todd is on the fence on whether or not he wants this to feel like a survival game at that point where it's really dark and you have to have torches, that kind of thing. Or if we just kind of go more of the traditional where it's just more of a gradual change. It's going to look like nighttime, but you can still see your hands and stuff like that easily as a metaphor.
They're all saying very dark.
Exactly.
Very excited about it to be super dark.
What did he ask?
And there's advantages to that,
Light effect.
and there's some disadvantages to that. But I kind of like it dark. I kind of would like I would like to see where, you would see a cabin or whatever, and you could see the fire glow, and people would be there, and then you just work your way there, and that's like a point of light. Whereas if it was just kind of generally dark, it really wouldn't, it'd still stand out, but it wouldn't be like a focal point to go in on.
Night vision disciplines.
Is that a real question?
The people were asking.
I have no idea.
That's
a design question.
Will trigger boxes allow for gradual change? Like if somebody gets into a fight near a trigger box, like you were talking about it being foggy and then not, is that gonna mess with like if they're fighting and running in and out of it?
That's interesting. Good question. Yeah, I don't know how that. Well, I mean, you can see. I don't know if it would be, and we probably could basically. It might look a little bit like this. It might be coming in that fast, so you can see how the clouds are changing. But we have a little bit of control of that. We can slow that process down so it's not so quick.
You got about 5 minutes left.
5 minutes.
Technically about 2 minutes, but.
All right, we got 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes.
Is night going to affect the draw distance?
Night would definitely affect the draw distance. We would bring in the fog. Right now, let's say this level right now is a little hazy, but let's just do this as a test real quick. Oh, it's nighttime. What did I just do? I changed the latitude. So let me come up here and quickly remove some of this fog because it's a little foggy right now. So let's say this was the distance that you're seeing right now. When it becomes nighttime, or if it becomes in a situation where the fog, we want that to change, it might look something like where you see the fog gradually getting thicker and thicker and thicker. So there's even like a ground fog that you can see right here. So this might be where you would see a swamp area, and you would not be able to change that. I mean, that's the idea. We don't want you guys to turn that off and then have any advantage.
But people can't turn up their brightness and see.
Oh, they can do that. You could definitely do that. You can always do that. There's no way to get around that.
Yeah, but if the fog gets thicker at night or something, then...
Yeah, I mean, we don't have control over gamma. I mean, in terms of someone just going on their monitor and changing that, and that's just. But we can affect what you can see in the environment on our side, on the server side.
What's the, just because we talked about this before, but a bunch of people asked, what's the likelihood of caves?
All right, so I was just talking about this with somebody. So we do have ideas on how we could do this within Unity and within the parcel building process. So real quick, I won't go too much on this because I've said it before, it's a broken record, but this has been a very challenging project in the sense that all those cool features that you see in games nowadays, global illumination, light baking, shadow baking, all these cool stuff that gives artists the ability to create some fantastic environments, we just can't do any of that. And the reason why is when you pick up an environment and rotate it, we can't pack all that information in and just save it out. It would just be way too much. So we've had to give a little on some of that cool stuff and then do everything dynamically, which is expensive. So to kind of, to answer that question with a cave system, we could definitely do that. We could model in a cave system and put it into next to the mountain or on the side of a terrain and make it look pretty cool. But I have some ideas. What I want to do is actually model that in the terrain, where we would cut out the terrain and make a whole cave system that actually feels subterranean. And there are some techniques for us to do that, and so it's a possibility. I'd like to get it in at some point. Be a post-launch thing, though.
Since the hunger and the progression of seasons drastically impacts the environment, will we see patches of variable environment type, like fall in one spot and winter in another at the same time, or is it all...
It's probably going to be more of a whole... what Todd wants, this is the thing he really wants, is... let's say from the season of fall going into winter, there's that in-between state, you would start to see the hunger crystals coming out of the ground, and there would be some snow that started to build up around there. And we might have little models with patches of that going on, but when it flips over to winter, everything's going to kind of flip over. So you won't have half the environment that's not, and then the rest of the environment that is. Is there any more questions? Last one. That's it?
I think since we've got them here, that's about it. Oh, will you add something to the edge of the map soon?
Oh yeah, edge of the map.
Instead of just.
I know. Yeah, that's another thing that we're testing, which is where we would take what we call like a beach parcel and flip and just tile those all around the whole world, and then it just stitches up, and then we would have like a world water that goes across everything, and we would do that as well. So that's something we want to do. It's just a matter of time. We'll get to it. Bear with us. Anyways, I guess that's it.
Yep, you're good.
All right. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed it. This was kind of a quick one. It was a quickie. And just to kind of show off some of the new stuff that's coming y'all's way. All right.
Sweet.
Ranger Disengage now includes a route.
Yeah. So a couple changes.
I can't remember why it was ever taken off.
It never had it. It never had a route on it. It was.
I swear in the original design doc for that we had.
Well, I never saw it. If it was before my time, there might have been, but they're actually. So yeah. So I added a route to disengage and a knockdown to jab, which I think is that in this one or is that in the next one?
This is the 5.3 or 5.2.4 patch notes.
So anyway, yes, quality of life stuff for the Ranger.
Added a knockdown to Ranger Jab. Okay. Jab was always really good. I think it's a guaranteed crit, isn't it?
It is.
And it's a knockdown?
It is. Both.
Sounds like the Ranger melee tray is pretty good. Enemy factions can contest the keep and start a siege by planting a Banewood Plague Tree. There are 3 Banewood Plague Trees on the map, one next to each beachhead. Once the Banewood tree has been planted, there's a 5-minute period where both teams can prepare for battle. So basically, this is just going through all the rules of a siege. And for many of you who played Siege Perilous with us,
very, very familiar.
They may seem very familiar, except Siege Perilous never had the pre-battle phases, the cleanup phases. We just basically threw you into a battle and then wipe the map.
Right. This is
right.
Sort of the formal introduction of the actual rules.
Right. And these times are in here just at this short value so we can actually get one done. And because we want to test these things multiple times before we kind of seal off the, oh, hey, now there's an hour timer on here or 30-minute timer.
Make sure the end-to-end works.
Right. And just like Siege Perilous, attackers can only win one way. They have to destroy the Tree of Life, and if they do so, they get control of the keep. The defender can either wait out the storm, essentially just outlasting the attack, or they can destroy all the Banewood trees if you have a significant defensive force that is stronger than the attacking force.
You can afford to leave the defenders go on the offense.
When the siege ends, the hippos will either reset back to full health. Hopefully the timer should be ticking down in the current version. There was a bunch of bug fixes for 5.2.6 that didn't make it out last week, I believe. So we are under efforts to get them out to you as soon as possible. When the siege ends, the hippos either reset or go back up to full health. If the hippo is not built to the final stage, it resets to the base hippo. If a hippo's shield is completely gone, then the hippo resets as the base hippo, and that wall needs to be rebuilt. When the siege ends, the catapults disappear from all the platforms. If the defenders win, there's a 10-minute cooldown before players can initiate a siege again. If the attackers win, there is no cooldown. So again, these are just testing values. I would expect them to be hours and maybe even upwards of a day in many cases. Classes are now restricted to using a specific type of armor. Plate can be used by Knight and Templar. Mail is used by the Champion, Myrmidon, Cleric, and Druid. Leather is used by Confessor, Frostweaver, Ranger, Assassin, and Duelist. We didn't mention there are now minor disciplines that enable you to put on the armor that you want.
That is actually mentioned further down.
It's just further down, okay.
Yeah.
And the basic armor still has no, everybody can still use the basic.
Right.
Correct. As a temporary measure to assist with all testing, all classes automatically have an extra 25% mitigation in their native armor's main protection type, physical, elemental, organic, and 15% mitigation bonus to their native armor's secondary protection type. So give us an example.
So like Knights get bonus 25% physical mitigation and another 15% to their organic mitigation because
that's their secondary.
Right.
Okay. Great. Added a new single non-comboing basic left-click attack to basic bows. Yes, so basic bows now do not the fancy ranger shots. They just do a left-click, a basic shot. if you want to have that third bonus shot for the ranger where they have fire based on their arrow type.
Right, arrow type.
Right. They need to have a recurve bow equipped. And that is considered an advanced bow. You need to go craft one. Reworked adjectives to point basic bows to the new left click. Yep. Rangers now default to basic bows and recurve bows. Basic bows are granted to everyone if they take the bow discipline along with a various flavor of bows. There's now 4 flavors of bow: recurve, arcane, reflex, and
Compound?
compound. You're right. Sharpshooters get the compound bow. Every one of those has a different left click attack that does something different. So now that we have that tech, we went ahead and used it. Yes. Reduced most range bow powers to a max of 15 meters.
Nerfed!
Nerfed! Okay, so that's not
not
true.
true.
That's because it is true, but the nerf is not true because bows now have a distance stat that can be experimented on them. So you can increase the range of your bow powers by crafting a better bow. All bow powers that use ground target remained at a fixed range, and generally that range is 30 to 35 meters. So with any power that uses a ground target, reticle, barrage, and suppression shot, for example, still are limited to 35 meters because we didn't want them shooting out to 80 meters suppressing people. You probably couldn't even see the reticle out that far, but all of those ground targets are still at a fixed range. All of your fancier shots will get modified by the bow value, and your stat value from disciplines, because most of the bow disciplines give like +5 meters, and Elkin get another 5 or 10 meters.
Right. Any other skills?
Basically, any other skills, they all go into that big bucket now that is range. So range is now mainly determined by that stat, very little from the power.
Crafted tools also create power tray shortcuts.
Yes, so if you open your inventory and right-click on the tool, it will automatically get equipped as well as add it to your power bar if it's not on the power bar. And from there on out, if you want to, you can just press whatever power key is associated with that, and it will equip it or unequip it.
Added a passive stacking damage buff to punching trees so it doesn't totally suck for new players. always looking out for the little guy.
Yeah, and so, I mean, let's talk about that. So when you land as a new player in any world, you have nothing now.
Right.
So prior to this, we gave you the Eternal Axe. The Eternal Axe has gone off to eternity, and it is now, you have your fists, and you just basically
Draw the...
you draw the destruction from the tree and you blow it up with your hand. It doesn't do near as much damage as using an axe.
Right. In other words, you definitely want to craft.
You want to get through that as fast as possible, right? So, but it did 25 points of damage, and it was just terrible. But we also have to watch out that we don't ever want that to compete with an axe.
Yeah, right.
Right, so it kind of intentionally has to be sucky, but we don't want it to
Not
make it
totally
sucky.
Just
But
kind of suck.
we want you to jump to your first axe as soon as possible. So basically you use it to get 3 wood, then you make an axe, and then you just rip the trees apart, and you're like, holy crap, this does a lot of damage. So it also creates that effect as well. But we don't want it to be a miserable experience.
Right. Ranger. Far Step is now an attack that teleports you directly to the target rather than a can distance blink. So Far Step, up until this point, basically just teleported you some...
It was like 20 meters or 30 meters forward?
Whatever it was. So like even if you were really good at, like, if you perfectly judge the distance, you might even wind up on their head. All kinds of different things that weren't great about that. Now it will teleport you to your target and do an attack. So much more useful.
Does it auto do the attack?
It will, yeah, it basically teleports and does damage, and then you can obviously follow up with whatever, I don't remember what the combo is after that, but you can hit them
And
again.
I think we also got rid of the speed buff on that one.
Yes, that's right. There's no more.
There used to
isn't a
be
speed buff.
There was a 3-second speed buff at the end of that
Right,
one.
which was sort of a sorry.
Yeah, sorry you missed your target.
Sorry you missed your target. At least you can run fast.
You can turn around and catch him really quick.
Yeah. So that should just play better now. Added some new stats, which act as parents to the lowest level crowd control stats, and our children to the top level CC all stats. That's really wordy, sort of an internal note, but basically created. So basically, we have crowd control up here, and then we have the super itemized, knockdown, resist, basically knockdown, stun, whatever. modifiers, either knockdown increasers, knockdown decreasers. I added a sort of an intermediary level to that. That's just for attack control, hard control, movement control.
What will the gameplay?
The gameplay will be for the trees, for example, rather than having super specific, like this box increases your knockdown durations. Replace those with ones that just increase all hard control durations, for example.
Okay.
So basically, it makes things a little more clustered and a little more useful. Part of that, a lot of that actually had to do with the fact that, for example, your class may not get a stun, so why would you want a stun increaser in your trees, right?
Sure.
Stuff like that.
Updated the PCM multiplier for all single-handed weapons to have a multiplier value of 0.375 on the final combine. This is basically because single weapons, you can now basically you have a main hand and an offhand. And the offhand, you will get the stat benefits from it if that's your thing. And I do believe we need to check on shields, but I'm pretty sure shields have PCM as well. Added a quiver item that rangers can equip in the ammo slot. Works as a vanilla flavored arrow and decays like normal equipment. Note that engineering work will be needed to make the durability tooltip display properly, but durability decay does appear to be working mechanically. The Elkin's 10-meter range enhancement, which I think I already nerfed to 5 meters maybe. We do so many things. Does it affect Cleric heals, Knight powers, Templar powers? It only affects powers that are flagged as ranged, which would be Cleric left clicks, not their heals, because those use ground targeting. It would affect any ranger style, basically anything that we consider ranged. Probably the confessor, the confessor,
all the confessor,
the confessor stuff as well. Yeah, I started adding some verbiage to powers that say they could not be modified by that stat. So that will be an ongoing process as we kind of incorporate that stat through all of our existing content. Okay, good morning everybody. My name is Thomas Blair, and today I'm going to show you Action Harvesting Part 2. This is an extension of what I showed last month, because last month we had just converted over the old F to interact harvest into a left click, more of an action style minigame, and because 5.3 took us a little bit of time to work out some of the big kinks, gameplay team had enough time to go in and make some enhancements and keep taking that prototype further, as well as I had time to get the harvesting disciplines built. And yeah, I'm going to demo that today. So one of the first things you're going to notice is the default camera is now offset. So if you look at the Knight, you'll notice my camera is offset, and that is to give myself a bit of space so I can see and my big Knight head isn't in the way. Now, if I press Z and go into my melee tray, you'll notice my reticle goes back over my head, so I don't experience the problems that people tend to have fighting melee mode with an offset camera. The range guys, when they go into a range mode, will maintain the offset camera, so hopefully they have an easier time aiming and their big heads aren't in the way. It was really difficult with the Elkin. You guys haven't played the Elkin Confessor yet, but his reticle kind of was problematic because his horns were big and in the way. So now we have this offset camera. It very clearly gives you a nice field of view. I know that's not the proper term, but it gives you very clear as to what you're aiming at. So you will also notice, as Tinnis already did, we have this new widget. We have added the concept of harvesting pips. So when you're in harvesting, every time you harvest, you will generate one combo pip. And you'll notice I now have a button on one. Everybody gets this button. It's called Energetic Harvesting. And if you look at the tooltip for it, basically when you spend harvesting pips, gain buffs based on the number of harvesting pips spent. So this power actually changes. It doesn't increase the duration the more pips you have. It actually changes what the power does. And we could have made this 5 separate powers on the tray, but we want this tray to be full of tools and other consumables, so I didn't want to clog it up with powers. So we tried to keep the harvesting powers kind of limited. So basically, the number of pips you have, what you press the button as is what you get. The very first one gives you a short duration. You'll also notice that the durations on all of these buffs are very quick. So you kind of get in a rhythm of left click, activate energetic harvesting. Left click twice, activate energetic harvesting. Left click 3 times. So you'll see where it's going. And it's not always that rhythm because the buffs will be wearing off. And in some cases, you'll get to the point where your tools are so good, you don't need to use the number 1 power anymore because, hey, what's 5 mining going to do when you've got like 75 or 80 on your tool? And you've got some coming from some stats coming from skill trees. So some of these buffs you will outgrow, so you can just skip them in the rotation that you come up with for harvesting. I want that orange stack of oak. Yes, that is. I just created a bunch because I kind of go through tools really quickly now, and I'm giving you guys time to read that stuff. Just because. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and equip my axe. And I will show you, as I hit the node, I generate 1 pip. And you'll notice that the symbol in that little widget changes based on what the power is going to be. So you generally know what power you're going to do by what is in your harvest meter. And you can go ahead and let me move this guy out of the way. You can move this widget wherever you want to. Billy was nice enough to give us that. I'm going to put mine right there. And I'm going to move this guy over here. Okay, so I press my number 1 power, and you'll notice I have Perceptive Harvest for 5 seconds, which is going to give me more weak spots. Hey, look at that. We have a weak spot now. If I put my reticle over the weak spot, when a weak spot happens, I'm going to do bonus damage. That is another stat that we've given you, which is the weak spot amount chance. You have, I'm sorry, yeah, we have 2 weak spot stats. You have weak spot chance, which is going to trigger it, and weak spot amount, which is going to do the amount of damage that you do. Okay, so you'll see it pop up. When it pops up, you hit it, and you'll notice I did 150 points of damage instead of 100 points of damage. And I'm already at 5 combo pips because I didn't spend them. If I spend them, I'm going to do 50 more points of damage just from that. And that damage will stack if I hit a weak spot. Let me pick up all that stuff. And I'm going to go to a more difficult tree. Now, for those of you who are may or may not be familiar with the Crowfall resource rank system, all of our resource nodes come from ranks 1 to 10. And we have them laid out here going from left to right. I just blew up a rank 1 tree. Rank 10 is all the way down here. The higher the rank, the more armor that tree basically has, which means that you're going to do less damage to it, as well as the better the resource it does. So that rank 1 tree I was hitting for 100 points of damage. I come down to this rank 6 and you'll see that I basically hit it for 39 points of damage. However, that will give it some life, and I've got full pip, so I'm going to press my button. I have a weak point that popped. If you don't hit your weak point fast enough, it will go away. It doesn't sit up there 100% of the time, and it only lasts for about 2 seconds. So you really only have 2 swings to get it, and you'll notice I did 60 points of damage. Right now they're popping at an accelerated rate because we wanted them to happen fairly often for testing. However, we will be tuning that down, and that will be something that you will get through the skill trees, as well as more stats to make them happen more often. And you'll notice that things are shifting again in my combo, my harvesting combo widget down there as I do this. So yeah, now I'm paying attention to a lot of things. And I'm out of stamina. So it definitely is awesome that we were able to leverage all of the tech that we've built for combat on the harvesting system. It just totally worked when we decided to go this route and then started prototyping it. I like to use the third one because that gives me an instant stamina restore, but it did mean I missed that weak spot, the weak point. So you have to kind of pay attention. And like I said, you only have, basically you have 2 hits after a weak spot appears for you to hit it. I'm going to go for the stamina restore. That time I'm going for more weak spots. Oh, and I'm out of stamina. So we have added a bunch of harvesting disciplines that work hand in hand with this new system. And whoa, I'm just watching the questions. Grouchar, I'm surprised that this progressive buff system was never used for a combat class skill. Yeah, so I was actually prototyping the Hoarder harvesting discipline, and I did a bunch of research on hoarding, and it made me very sad to read about this and how people get crushed by their own stuff, and you may remember the show Hoarders. But the concept I was looking at was the concept that a hoarder would have a lot of objects, and I could represent those with buffs, and then based on you pressing that hoard button, it would consume the buffs, and it would give you a progressive style buff. So I took that a little further, and I talked with Halish, and we kind of debated, and we said, let's just make it a combo point thing, because we have combo points, and it's very easy for us to make those. And Billy made us a widget, and that kind of power morphed into this energetic harvesting that everybody gets, because I wanted everybody to get it. So the cool thing about energetic harvesting is no matter what kind of harvesting you specialize in, the way that the base power is set up is that this is good for everything. It gives you 5% more grave digging, logging, mining, coring, skinning for 5 seconds. So it's good for all kinds of harvesting. Now, the very first harvesting discipline I'm going to show you is called Miner. So Miner gives you +1 plentiful resources all. So for those of you who have played, you'll know that plentiful resources shifts up the loot tables that you get when you harvest. So you have a higher probability to get higher quality goods. And it just gives you a flat +1. There is no kind of, if you remember the mining boost that I have in currently for the basic resource gathering, that's been deprecated, and now the plentiful resources is just given out as a flat value as part of this discipline. And it also gives you the empowered mining passive. So when I equip this, let me show you what happens. So I have a new passive down here called empowered mining. And basically what it does is it works with the energetic harvesting to give you additional mining buffs. So you still always get the base ones. However, this lets me improve my mining even more by giving me another 5, an additional weak spot chance when I'm hitting ore targets. It increases the amount of stamina I get. I haven't hooked that up yet, but I will hook that up today. The beneficial harvest by another 5, and it gives you even more damage when you hit ore nodes on the Ruinous Harvest buff. So let's load that out, and I can show you. Okay, so you'll now notice that I have an empowered mining up there, and now when I activate this power, let me get to when it gives me a buff. You'll notice I have Ruinous Harvest over here in the corner, and I have Ruinous Mining, which means if I was hitting a mining node, I would do an additional 30 points of damage. I'm not hitting a mining node right now. However, I activated it on this tree. I just wanted to show you that, yes, the buff stack. And you'll notice I get Energetic Harvest and Empowered Mining. Because I can have 2 major disciplines, I can also load out whichever other one I want as well. So Empowered Logging, there is Empowered Quarrying. Basically, there's one for each of the harvesting types. And that would give you 3 buffs, and it would give you 3 stacks or 3 hits for the stamina buff as well, which means that you can get a lot of stamina back if you want to do that. So you can, again, since these give you passives and you have, as a human, you'll see that the human has a plethora of passive slots to load out. They can load out both passives if they want to. What do you want to look at the weakness spot? Soul Reaver there. This is a very... Ooh, 2 in the exact same spot. Nice. That sometimes happens. Lots of weak spots because we have it so turned up right now. Oh, and I'm out of stamina because I am beating on a rank 8 tree with a basic axe, which is something that you probably don't want to do. Will these work on mother loads in the same way? Yes, in fact, there are some very specific mother load debuffs that I will show you when we get to the Foreman discipline. Okay. Gonna eat an apple. I use a lot more stamina, so those disciplines that reduce stamina usage, like the Ganeshan, will really help in the future. Okay, Villain is the one that I'm going to build today. Hoarder is basically, Hoarder was kind of the... I'm really happy the way that kind of treed into the energetic harvesting for everybody. And I want to show you guys kind of, if my Excel hadn't crashed, this is kind of how our disciplines start. Is they start on an Excel sheet, and my Excel is not responding. Thank you, Excel. Excel and Word don't like to work with Unity in the background. It tends to crash on me. Come on, Excel. Okay. So for those of you who remember the combat disciplines, this is how they all started. They all started on an Excel sheet, and this was us brainstorming. And you'll notice the name of the sheet is called Disciplines for Reals. And this is where they all started. And I'm going to go down to, there's the racials. And I'm going down to the harvesting ones. And this is kind of how we brainstorm. Oh, this is the icons that Lars is going to make. He put notes in here. I'm going to take those out so they don't distract you guys. And yellow is when actually they've gone through and I've implemented a rough prototype, and this is what they do. So, oh, spotting, that's a good one. Immune to dizzy for 8 seconds after a successful harvest. We'll get to that one shortly. Yes. All right, so back to Hoarder. So Hoarder gives you Usurious Bargain, which basically is like the Druid Sacrifice mechanic. Instead of giving life to essence, though, this one gives you life to stamina, which, as you see, the rate of stamina I'm chewing through here is pretty extreme because, again, these harvests don't take 15 to 16 seconds like they used to. They are much quicker. I need this, which is a passive, which weak points now grant stamina, which is great because it means if you do a harvesting build that has to do with generating lots of weak points, the additional stamina hits will, if you watch my stamina bar, you'll notice that one was slightly off the target. You'll notice, oh, hey, my stamina goes up because I hit a weak point and I need this active. So yeah, this is what a kind of a high weak point build with the Hoarder passive rolling will be. It's going to be hard to run out of stamina, and we're going to have to balance that such that you can't keep 100% uptime. Let's see what else. We have Usurious Bargain, which we are getting new icons for these. This is just what we have right now. Now, all of the passive or the powers that come from these harvesting disciplines, they all use the same combo point system. Originally, before we had come up with that, they were using stamina, and it was a real challenge to stay on top of your stamina. But now that we have the harvesting pip system, they just go ahead and they use pips. Why did that one not spend? Oh, because that was Usurious Bargain. This one actually uses health. Okay, let me show you the next one. The next one, called Connoisseur, it gives you 2 powers. One called Finer Things, which increases your chance to harvest node exotic items, and Glycolysis, which now apples will give you stamina as well as giving you chicken ticker. So I'm going to go ahead and load out Glycolysis, and increases your chance. Increases your gem harvest chance, mineral harvest chance, heartwood harvest chance, grave good harvest chance, and hunger shard chance. Why doesn't it mention? Okay, it doesn't mention heartwood. So there you go. And this one costs a couple harvest pips. Let me load it out. And it's missing an icon. Look at that. Again, like I said, we'll get the icons straightened out. So for those of you who don't know what those objects are, those are basically the rares that come from each type of node. We tried to make these all-encompassing so they didn't kind of shoehorn you in to a specific harvesting type. If you want to do that, you can take the specialized miner, logger, quarryman, whatever. Okay, lookout. So lookout, gives you Keen Eye and Spotting. So Keen Eye increases your harvest weak spot chance by 10% for 15 seconds. This does stack with the basic one, and it will stack with the specialized one. So again, the idea being you can build for weak spots. So because that chance is going to come down once we get out of this testing phase, to make sure it works, you can do a custom build all around making weak spots. And if you combine that with Hoarder, that gives you even more interesting build options. This one also comes with a passive Spotting. Each time you damage a resource node, you become dizzy immune for 15 seconds. So that will prevent dizzy as well as dizzy down. And you'll notice that I have the dizzy immune buff for... Basically, you just have to keep hitting a node. You can't use this as a combat, or you wouldn't want to be running around with combat in out of combat and hitting trees. And let's hope that doesn't happen for people to try and avoid that mechanic. But this should help you if you are worried about someone kind of popping up from behind you and stabbing and knocking you down. There's now an answer to that, as well as it gives you, again, increases the Keen Eye. So you'll get that if you want to work on your weak spot builds. Can other players see your weak spots on the node? No, the weak spots are based on you. So if two players are harvesting and I just have a weak spot build, I'm going to be chewing through my portion of it much quicker. Also, yes, all these mechanics will eventually work on the Tree of Life is the design. So, yeah. What about using the Dizzy Immune on the attacking the Tree of Life? Totally. You can most certainly do that. Yeah, you have to spend a disc spot. Yeah, this is... You don't get all of these powers, and in fact, you're going to have to find them, and you're probably going to build around them. Like, hey, I have an idea that I want to do a crazy weak spot build, or hey, I want to do a super stamina build, but I don't want to take all the weak spots off. It's just like combat stuff. There are less of them, but they are fairly interesting, and I think we have some of the most interesting harvesting now out there with all these fun things you can do. Okay, Survivalist. So Survivalist gives you 2 powers. I Need This and Burst of Strength. Look at that, they all have text already too. Fantastic. Burst of Strength deals 100% additional harvest base damage to any resource node type. Lasts 6 seconds or 2 hits, whichever comes first. That was fun to set up. And I Need This. Increase your chance to harvest apples, pine nuts, wood grubs by 5%, and grants the chance to harvest bloodworms by 3% when harvesting trees or animals. So, you will now have an increased chance to get all those survivalist goodies. And for those of you who have cooked those goodies, you know there's a recipe to cook them. Bloodworms is a new thing that you can cook, and it gives you a Trailblazer buff for 15 minutes. So bloodworms are a thing. And for those of you who don't know, Trailblazer is our out-of-combat movement speed buff. Oh, my axe broke, and you'll notice that I've already gone back to punching. Good thing I built another axe. I'll go ahead and snap that thing out.
Will we see weak spots on Tree of Life and walls and things like that?
Will you see weak spots? No, we didn't put them on the walls, but we will probably put them on the trees. And I am out of juice because I wasn't using my stamina restore power. Okay, so you'll notice here on the ground, right now I have the rate turned way up. One of those should be a bloodworm. Yep, I have 2 bloodworms. I can now go cook those with the survivalist cooking. And if I had a campfire, can I make a campfire? Oh. Not you. Let's use you. Use epic wood. I will make an epic campfire. Let's go over here. Drop the campfire. Survivalist cooking. Hey, roasted bloodworm. Looks like bloodworm cells are much more efficient than yours. And it gave me 2 roasted bloodworms. Now here's, since these are consumables, in theory, oh, we don't have that functionality working yet. Yes, I'm able to drag the roasted bloodworms as they are an item that you right-click to use. I can now put them on my consumable bar, which is functionality that we got. I know, it's super exciting. Look at all these things are just working. And I ate the bloodworm. It gave me something called bloodworm glow. And you'll notice that now, as a human, I have the Trailblazer buff. And it's coming as an aspect of the bloodworm glow. And I'll have that right now is 25 minutes. So I now have Trailblazer. If I was a race that had Trailblazer, that would have upgraded me to Trailmaster for the amount of time that the bloodworm buff lasts. Two bloodworms does not get you to Trailmaster. However, Trailblazer plus a bloodworm will get you to Trailmaster. I like how it all just works. So exciting when things just work.
You make me so nervous every time you say that.
It's like, well,
Please knock on the desk or something. Thank you.
Well, it's nice that we can build all these things now, and as you backers who have seen from the early days when things were all very custom, we were able to build all this stuff. Mainly, it was all just extension of combat, extension of items, extension of the consumable stuff. So we've got to the point where we can just start building content now, rather than actually making the making it all work. So if you were making a house, we're actually painting the walls and we're hanging pictures rather than putting up the drywall and the beams, which is great. Okay, so that was the Survivalist. And Survivalist, again, the only way to get bloodworms is to take this passive. That's part of the benefits of taking this passive. There are a lot of interesting options, I think, within the new harvesting disciplines. And then Burst of Strength, I will demo this for you. It takes... You'll notice a normal hit is doing 70. It also changes your shader, and now I did 140. I hit Burst of Strength as well as a weak point, so I did 210 on that one hit. It's the damage all stacks. And we're using the Bull Rush shader right now until Aislinn or Greg is going to go ahead and give us a new effect. And it will indicate that you have that buff active. Oh, where are you bloodworms going? Give me some more bloodworms! Bloodworms! It's so exciting. Isn't this exciting, Jack?
This is exciting.
See? Jack's like, this is way better than running up to a tree and hitting F. Way better.
I'm gonna do so much harvesting now.
Yes, that was my hope, that it would make it much more fun for everyone to do this. And this is kind of, again, we've done combat. We did multiple passes on it. We did our 2.0 implementation. This is our 2.0 implementation of harvesting. So again, we've taken a huge leap from our old harvesting, and then in the near future, crafting will get its 2.0 pass, and I can't wait for that as well. But let's look at the next harvesting discipline. This is Foreman. Let me get rid of this guy. Bye-bye, bloodworms. I'm sorry to see you go. Our new one is Foreman. So, Foreman gives you 3 buffs, or 3 powers. It gives you a power called Take It Down, which reduces the ore mitigation and ore... look at that. Ore mitigation and ore mitigation of Looks like I have the word in there twice. Typo on my part. I'll go ahead and fix it after this stream. You write that down. Foreman typo. Of ore and stone mother loads by 45% for 15 seconds. So it's not quite as good as adding another player. However, it will put a debuff on the node that you're actively fighting, and it only works on the mother load nodes, which are these big nodes out here, which are intended for groups. But what that does is these things have such a high armor value. You get a armor reduction for each player up to 2 beating on it, and then no more. This one will let you go over that, meaning you'll be able to harvest these motherload nodes with weaker tools. You basically don't need blue and epic tools. If you have this buff, you can substitute that. If you have those kinds of tools, you may not need it. You may just want to churn through the node faster, so you will debuff it. Node you are fighting. Yes, again, as Singe says there, it's combat on the back end, and we're not hiding that fact that it's combat. It uses the same systems. So the stuff that we can do in combat, we can generally do to nodes. Okay, the second power it gives you is called Back to Work. This instantly restores 2 harvest pips and 8 stamina to all your group members. It doesn't affect you. So you are basically spending 4 of your pips to give the entire group 2 pips and a stamina boost. And let's hope that this doesn't get abused, because Hellish will nerf that shit faster than you can say nerf. Okay, lead from the front. Here's the passive. Whenever you successfully harvest, your group members gain Inspired, which adds 2% weak spot chance and 4% weak spot amount for 20 seconds. Inspired stacks up to 5 times. So, and it doesn't affect you as the foreman. So basically, taking this passive is, hey, I'm the leader of the group. I'm the guy who sacrificed a major discipline spot, or a major discipline slot, to take all of these powers that are going to help my group. And they're really good, but probably you're not going to have a group stack a lot of these unless they try and abuse Back to Work, which I'm hoping they doesn't happen. And take it down. So I might end up adding one more thing into Foreman that gives somewhat of a personal thing. But again, one of the goals with the harvesting disciplines was, remember, I didn't want to flood your tray with powers, because I want you to put lots of tools there. I want you to put consumables there. So generally, you should have about 3, maybe 4 powers on there, and the rest of the room is for all of those things. We're not naive. We already know that it's going to get abused, but we hope the math works out in the favor of it not being one of those things that you can abuse. I mean, it still costs 4 pips, so we just don't want to get into a case where it's super cycling, so we may have to change it to be costing 5 pips. We just know that it's going to cause problems. Yes, we've been doing this for a long time. It's going to get a cooldown. Yeah, it might have to. We'll see. How will the foreman powers work with the leadership granted powers? They all stack at this point. I'll have to take a pass on those after this gets in your guys' hands, or maybe if I have time beforehand. But those, the leadership buffs were built a long time ago. I think I built those about 1.5 years ago. And they may not gel well with some of the newer buffs. So you'll notice that there is still one to be built in here. That's going to make your tools decay slower. So I know tools decay slower doesn't sound very sexy at this point. However, I am churning through tools like you wouldn't believe, because I'm just going around harvesting things and I'm not using the advanced tools. And then there's also some things we want to add, like increased bag space for ore once we actually get the bag inventory stuff online, and just some bonus overall stat stuff that will also get added in here. Yeah, Villain is also going to put your back into it. This is what I'm prototyping, where instead of using stamina, you actually use your health for the next 10 seconds. That will be an interesting way to, again, you'll notice most of these, the theme is better ways to get stamina, because stamina is what drives better harvesting. And you'll see You'll see more of that in the upcoming weeks. When 5.3 goes active, these have already been added to the craftables, so you'll be able to play with them.
Oh, here's a good one. Are tools on the power bar safe from looting?
Are tools on the power bar safe from looting? Okay, so I can't find that button. It just went in yesterday. I'll have to go look for it later. I just wanted to show you guys, but I'll let O'Neill demo that when he comes in here next time. Okay, so in the equipment loadout, you'll notice the 4 tool slots are now gone. I have 1 tool loaded out. This tool is considered equipped, and if I go into a combat tray, that thing is equipped but not active. So that slot does not show up in my inventory. It does not count against you. So yes, that thing is safe. Other things on your bar, not safe. In fact, we should probably tell Akshay that if those things disappear from your inventory, I think they clean up, but I'll have to verify with him if they clean up. Will arrows be safe from looting? Arrows that are in your arrow slot, yes. And if you have a quiver loaded out there in 5.3, let me... Woodworking. Oh, hey, there's the new bows. Ah, yes, the quiver is in there, and the quiver object will not get... it's equipped. It can't be looted. What effect does going into combat have on Bloodworm Glow? So Bloodworm Glow, Trailblazer is the same tech on the back end for everybody. If you go into combat, you lose your movement buffs. The Bloodworm Glow is still up there, but and you'll notice if I come out of combat, I get it again. We've basically made our movement enhancing stuff happen mainly out of combat because we want to keep combat relatively, we don't want ridiculous variances in movement rate. So the out of combat movement stuff is where we let you go nuts, and in combat that's less of a thing, because if you get hit out of combat, more than likely you're going to get dizzied and knocked down. So yes, I went through and made considerable work to make sure that your Trailblazer, if you have that buff active, always comes back when you come out of combat, when Bard Song wears off, when any type of enhancements wear off, you're going to get it back to the level that you should have it.
Will we ever see the weak spot tech potentially in PvP combat systems?
Oh, I don't want to say never or yes.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's kind of we need to play with it. This one, we'll see how it susses out on harvesting, I guess is the best way to do that. We'll see if everybody really loves it. I'm having a great time with harvesting now. There's just so much to do as compared to before. It's kind of like when we made the archetypes race class split and added disciplines, where we had kind of the least customization available in, like, it was like we were on the MOBA level, and now we're over here on this side where we have pretty much some of the most customization available for our characters. Went from one extreme to the other. Our harvesting went from a super simple basic F to interact over here on the left, and now we're all the way on the right where it's totally action based and we're using all of our combat mechanics, and it's totally cool. Next question. Leiloni, just let people move the reticle to the position they want to on the screen. That might be an option. The thing is we still need to provide good defaults. You always have to have good defaults. Otherwise, because most people won't know about the advanced options, and if their initial experience is unpleasant, then they won't even make it to the advanced options. So your defaults are always important. Is the new harvesting still based on who did the most damage for the final crunch? The nodes, it's based on the contributors, and you have to do 20% of the damage per stage to be considered a contributor. And you want a basic knife? I'm going to use legendary wood to make this knife because why not? Okay, I click it. You notice my knife comes out. It also automatically gets added to my tray down below. In fact, now you can press 4 and make it go away, or you can press 4 if you really like the... I really like that summon animation. You know what? Our animators, they make me so happy, and the effects guys following it up with just making it look good. Yes, so there are no effects right now on the buffs that you get from the nodes. They will be there, and it will make it even better. And then our friend Gibson over there is going to give us sounds. Right, Gibson?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's going to punch it up even more. So when I'm harvesting this Hellcat...
Look at all those dead cats.
Yeah, the blood isn't spurting. I think Aislinn needs to make a pass. You'll notice I have a weak spot. So it works just like it does on the other resource types. You know what? I didn't see any... Wow, this one is...
Is that the noise?
Yeah, I'm recording stuff as we speak.
Good job. Will there be weak points on wooden fort walls and stone walls? Right now, no on the walls, but yes on the Tree of Life. But if we think, hey, you know what, this is really cool on walls, and people really want to use some harvesting disciplines when they're assaulting walls, sure. I mean, I don't want to say no if it's gonna be fun.